Philip York is a worried man. He's been farming nearly all his life, and he knows the upcoming expenses resulting from the emissions trading scheme introduction will hurt many rural communities.
We've just got to watch every cent in this business, and we've got to be very careful that it doesn't get stolen from us by inflation and generally by people just wanting to put their prices up because they think they can.
And it's clear to see where the costs will hit hardest. Prime Minister John Key has stated publicly the direct cost to an average New Zealand household will be around $3 per week. However, for a farmer, these costs are compounded by volume and indirect effects, such as diesel and power usage. Using the same model for expenses, an average farmer could see their costs rise much higher. Philip York believes the increases in costs across the board is putting younger people off farming as a viable future career.
One would wonder when there's all these farms that are being sold to Chinese interests at the moment, why New Zealanders aren't running out to buy them. We think that if farming was such a great enterprise, then people would be queuing up to pay to get into the industry, but they're not.
Canterbury arable farmer David Clark says he has crunched the numbers for his farm, and the figures given by the Ministry of Agriculture of $8 per hectare are way off the mark.
If the Ministry are contending that our cost is only $8 per hectare and that it's insignificant in our businesses, that's fine. I would challenge the Minister to publicise how that calculation was brought about, and also make a binding statement to us as farmers that our costs will only be $8 per hectare, because at the moment it would appear that our costs are maybe 10 times that.
Agriculture Minister David Carter, however, says the financial impact on an average New Zealand farm will be far lower than most expect, and it is only fair that as large emitters, they pay a larger price.
It's going to cost the average sheep farmer $1,495 per year for the first, starting 1 July this year, and $3,900 for the average dairy farm. So I'd have to go through and get you the average size of each farm and then divide them accordingly. So the $8 figure I'm not sure about.
Federated Farmers President Don Nicholson says the figures released by the government fall well short of the real cost, as they haven't factored in the costs of inflation affecting farms or price rises in related industries.
I'm sick of actually the Minister of Agriculture saying agriculture is not until 2015. It is only the biological emissions. Agriculture, every input in agriculture that requires energy and fuel is going to have these levies on it from 1 July this year, like every other New Zealander is going to pay. Trouble is, every other New Zealander doesn't even know how it's going to impact them because the government can't put out a decent figure.
ASB economist Chris Tennant-Brown says the biggest concern over recent financial announcements should be around inflation and inevitable interest rate hikes affecting rural communities.
ETS is just one of many things that are going to push inflation up pretty high over the next year or so. GST is the bigger thing, but ETS and GST are all playing their part, and we'll get inflation up to over 5%. Add into that things like the Fonterra payout being strong and the expectation that that'll bring some money into the rural community. We can see why over the next year or two inflation will be a bit of a concern.
The first phase of the emissions trading scheme is set to come into play in just under a month's time, with an initial rise in the price of commodities essential to farming, such as petrol and electricity. And of course, with the agricultural emissions tax on the horizon, being a farmer in New Zealand certainly isn't getting any cheaper. Drew Chappell, Country 99 TV News.